Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Japan and he has held bilateral talks with his Japanese counterpart Kishida as well as Vietnam and South Korean counterparts. On bilateral with Japan, India has said leaders discussed ways to further strengthen the bilateral special strategic and global partnership, including the strengthening and focus on the Indo-Pacific region. Prime Minister Modi also unveiled the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Hiroshima during his visit to the city to attend the annual summit of the G7 grouping and the third in-person Quad leaders meeting. He also met the members of the Indian diaspora in Japan. Let's listen to this.
हिरोशिमा ये नाम सुनते ही आज भी दुनिया थरथरा उठती है, कांप जाती है। G7 समिट की मेरी इस विजिट में मुझे सबसे पहले पूज्य महात्मा गांधी की प्रतिमा का अनावरण का सौभाग्य मिलना, ये अपने आप में एक बहुत ही बड़ा सुयोग है। बुद्ध और गांधी की धरती जिसने विश्व को शांति का संदेश दिया, हिरोशिमा की धरती पर, और जापान जो कि भगवान बुद्ध के विचारों के से पल्लवित पोषित है, वहाँ पूज्य बापू की प्रतिमा अहिंसा के, करुणा के उन विचारों को आगे ले जाने में बहुत बड़ी प्रेरणा बनेंगे। मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि जापान के प्रधानमंत्री पिछले दिनों जब भारत आए थे तो मैंने उन्हें बौद्ध गया से लाया हुआ एक पवित्र वृक्ष का पौधा दिया था, और आज उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि उन्होंने उस बोधि वृक्ष का पौधा था वो हिरोशिमा के गार्डन में लगाया है, ताकि हिरोशिमा आते ही, याद आते ही शांति के महत्व दुनिया समझ सकती है।
And I'm being joined by my colleague Kadambini right now for more on this. So Kadambini, Prime Minister Modi has had bilateral talks with 3 countries, including Japan. Not just that, there's also the key Quad meeting later in the day today.
Right, Sneha, and there were this doubts about Quad meeting when President Biden said that he cannot travel to Australia, where it was initially supposed to take place. But after that, we also heard the Australian Prime Minister saying that they are trying to schedule the meeting in Hiroshima itself, where all the 4 leaders of Quad nations would be present on the sidelines of G7, and finally it has come to happen. So now the meeting will be taking place, the Quad meeting will be taking place today itself, and all the 4 leaders would be there attending the meeting. We know that Quad has been something which rankles China. It has been giving statements against it, and it has said that it is a grouping which is actually made to function against China. But this group has been consistently saying that it is just to help each other, and we have seen during the corona times how the vaccines were sent to different countries and the cooperation which came forward. But of course, it is also the underlying fact that all these countries have some or the other issues with China, and in recent years it has now become quite close and very active, which was not the case earlier. So there are statements by China, but the Quad leaders have made it a point. This is the 3rd time they would be meeting in person, and they have made it a point to make it more active than it was ever before. And that is the reason that even when it did not take place in Australia, they found, all 4 leaders found time to have this Quad summit in Hiroshima itself, where all the 4 leaders are present for G7 summit. Sneha?
Right, Kadambini, thank you for all of those details. In fact, Kadambini and NDTV will keep bringing you all the details that are emerging from these crucial meetings that are happening in Hiroshima.
At this moment is being seen. In fact, this is the G7 summit which is taking place at this moment. Prime Minister if I'm not mistaken, meeting the American President, Mr. Biden, at the summit. A warm hug between the Prime Minister and the United States President. A very Narendra Modi trademark style of greeting the world leaders there. You also have leaders of the other 5 countries which are also part of the G7, which is taking place in Hiroshima, Japan. Remember, the Prime Minister would also have bilaterals on this. There is a Quad meeting also expected as far as the G7 summit is concerned. So the Prime Minister will, in fact, is participating in this meeting representing India. And there you have it, him meeting the President of United States, President Joe Biden. Important deliberations will take place here at this forum, the G7 forum, and also the Quad meeting. The Quad, in fact, seen as the counterweight to the increasing influence of the China. This will take place later, but at this moment, the G7, which is taking place in Japan, where the Prime Minister is, in fact, meeting the world leaders. The first pictures, these of the United States President Joe Biden. Remember, the Prime Minister of India would be on a state visit to America later, in few weeks from now. So America is going to be the center of attention as far as the foreign policy, the outward look of India is concerned. Rahul Gandhi, the Congress leader, would also be in the United States ahead of the Prime Minister. So you can expect somewhere of our, both these two leaders in the preparations for 2024 also, in fact, crisscrossing the world. Though the Prime Minister would be on a state visit, Rahul Gandhi will be meeting, going to a few universities, and also be addressing a few Indian diaspora at the Madison Square Garden, where the Prime Minister, when he had gone earlier, I remember it was a huge event that was played out at the Madison Square Garden as well, a concert where the Prime Minister also participated and met a lot of people. So the G7 summit visuals at this moment are coming in. The United States President meeting the Prime Minister of India. Kadamini, my colleague, joining us on the phone line at this moment. Kadamini, the meeting has begun. The Prime Minister and United States President Joe Biden sharing a very warm hug. It also comes at the backdrop of PM who would be visiting United States for a state visit very soon. Kadamini, if you can hear me, we are getting these visuals of the Prime Minister at this moment, meeting the President of United States. Quite an important meeting this is, the G7 meet, the Quad meet after this as well. But this warm hug and the warm meeting between the Prime Minister and the United States President come at the backdrop of Prime Minister's impending visit to the United States as a state guest.
Yes, Ankit, we can see that warm embrace at the G7 meeting where PM Modi has just arrived to take part in it. And this is also coming just before the bilateral state visit which PM Modi will be making soon to United States of America. And White House as well as India has announced this visit. And this is only the third world leader to which this honor has been extended by the White House, by the Biden administration at the moment. So this G7 summit where both President Biden and the PM Modi are meeting can be looked at as a build-up to this state visit which PM Modi would be taking soon enough. But at the moment, the G7 meeting there in itself is an important gathering where India has been invited as a guest. Around 8 countries have been invited here, and talks range from peace and security to, and PM Modi has said that he will be talking about the global south, that is the developing countries' concerns in the G7 as well. So this is quite an important meeting. But I would also like to point out that the G7, which is concentrating largely on Russia-Ukraine war, they have been talking about it. They have come out with a communique where they have said that sanctions would be more severe, as well as they will not be exporting any machinery to Russia. President Zelensky has arrived in Hiroshima. He'll be talking to all the leaders there. He'll also be meeting PM Modi. So in this backdrop, would there be anything where India would be a bit pressured to look at what it has been doing? India has done a very deft maneuvering as far as Russia is concerned. So at the moment, we'll have to see what else happens between PM Modi and Zelensky, whether he'll be asking to intervene in the war, to de-escalate, or bring down the engagement which India has with Russia at the moment. And as all the G7 rich countries are there, they are also talking about Ukraine in such a huge measure. So would there be any pressure on India regarding that? We'll also have to see that. But of course, this warm hug by Biden is a precursor to the state visit, which will happen soon, and the strength of relationship between India and the US in recent times. Ankit?
Thank you, Kadamini, for joining us with all those details. Very important mention there of Ukrainian President, Mr. Zelensky, who would be meeting the Prime Minister. This will be, if I'm not mistaken, the first one-on-one, in-person meeting between both the leaders. They have had phone conversations, but this is the first time that the Prime Minister of India will be meeting the President of Ukraine since the aggression started in their country, in Ukraine, the fight between Ukraine, the war between Ukraine and Russia, which continues at this moment.